Hello guys, the Unsmooth Criminal. Hopefully you guys like that intro. I love that song. But it's now time for part 2 of what if Deku, or Fem Deku, had a system. And it's now the first day of school or no, I already did that. Yeah, I already did the Heroes vs. Villains. It's now the time for the USJ. So it's 2 months after the first day of school with Aizawa and All Might. So everybody's getting on the bus, and Kaminari is talking with Izumi, asking what is her quirk's capabilities, and Izumi's saying that everything a system can do, she can do. And he's like, that is cool. And he'd like to train with her sometimes, and Bakugo is overhearing this and getting jealous. And her seeing him getting jealous, she walks up behind him with the bus still driving and throws him over the seat. And it's like, what the hell is that for? And she goes, you grumpy pants. He goes, I'm not grumpy. I'm like, yeah, you are. You're always grumpy. He goes, no, I'm not. And Aizawa says, shut up, problem children. We're here. Get off the bus. So they get off the bus and they start walking in, and Izumi is put on her armor, and this time she has the claws on, the ones you see here. And when they get into the USJ, Izumi gets a bad feeling, and Bakugo gets a bad feeling. Aizawa also gets a bad feeling, and Izumi says, Aizawa, do you feel that? And he goes, yeah. Stay on guard, and I'll give you permission this one time to use your quirk on other people. And she goes, my quirk never deactivates, so you can't really give me permission to use it or not. And he goes, fair. So 13 gives her speech of how quirks can be very dangerous to people. And then the villains show up. And since there was a confidential file right next to All Might's file, because All Might's file was confidential, Kurogiri and Shigaraki took both of them. So, All for One saw the quirk that Izumi has and was like, I want that quirk. Go get it for me. So they have more than just one Nomu. And these Nomu are to capture, not hurt, Izumi. But the Nomu come out and they see their target and they dash straight towards her. And her asking Ochako to lighten her armor, and her asking why, and then she points at the Nomu who are currently running at full speed towards her and are trying to get up the stairs. Well, running up the stairs. Ochako's like, oh crap. And she just slaps Izumi on the back, which lightens her armor. And Izumi goes full speed towards the Nomu. And the Nomu collide with her, and she gets hit really hard. So she starts getting beat up. And now she's ready for a fight. So she's brawling with the Nomu. Aizawa jumps down and starts fighting with the villain. And Bakugo's about to jump in, and 13 says, stop! And you can't take these children. And she's talking to Kurogiri, who's currently behind them, trying to not make them not leave. And Izumi, who's super fast at this point, and has the claws out and is fighting with the Nomus, can't get to the exit to stop Kurogiri, and she's currently ripping the Nomus apart with the claws. So Bakugo takes it upon himself to protect the students by destroying Kurogiri. So he uses his explosions, gets up to Kurogiri, and doesn't aim for the mist, he aims for the center of the mist. Because Bakugo is like, okay, if there's something in that blob of mist, it's going to be in the center. So he aims for the center and hits the metal piece. And since he's slightly faster in this one, he grabs the metal piece and throws it to the ground. And Kurogiri's quirk destabilizes. And he poofs out of existence. And 13 asks Bakugo what he did, and he says, I just took this off of him. And holds up the metal piece and says, I didn't hurt him, I just took this off of him, and he poofed. And 13 was like, oh, okay, I understand. And Shigaraki, seeing that Kurogiri's gone, asks for help from the master, which is All For One, and he says, sure, he'll send in his high-ranking Nomu to get Shigaraki out of there. So the high-ranking Nomu gets in here, and Izumi, who has somewhat of a mini-map, sees a really red dot that's very dangerous. So she bolts off towards it and slams it in the jaw with the claws, pulling its jaw off. But since it's invisible, like Higakure's invisibility, it can't turn it off. But it can spread it to other creatures. So it pulls off, Izumi pulled off its jaw, and the jaw shows. And Izumi starts ripping it to shreds, and she currently has her eyes shut. And everybody's like, why does she have her eyes shut? And she's currently shredding the high-ranking Nomu. It can't regenerate fast enough. And now the high-ranking Nomu is dead on the ground. And Izumi is panting, and then she gets hit in the back, right in the lower spine by a Nomu, and she goes flying into a wall because she forgot about the other Nomu. The only other one that has regeneration, because the one that was supposed to capture her did not have regeneration. It had super strength and basically a capture quirk. And she got hit in the back, and she can't move her legs now, because she was folded like a burrito. No, not burrito, taco. She was folded like a taco. So she uses her strength to push her up to standing position, and then she twists her back just right so her back realigns. And the game system's regeneration kicks in slowly, so she could start moving her legs after a few minutes, but she's currently being dragged away by the Nomu, and she can't do anything about it. And Bakugo, seeing this, starts going ape shit, and goes straight down to where the Nomu is and starts blowing the hell out of it. And Aizawa, seeing this, is like, oh crap, I gotta stop him or help him stop the Nomu. So he turns off the Nomu's quirk and works on helping Bakugo. But at this point, the high-ranking Nomu, who has really good regeneration, has regenerated. And Izumi is taken away by the Nomu, Shigaraki, and the other high-ranking Nomu. So now we skip a few days, and Bakugo finally wakes up from passing out from overexertion, and he asks where Izumi is, and Aizawa says, we haven't found her yet. And Bakugo goes, damn it! And he starts to cry and spill his feelings about the only friend he's ever had. The only true friend he's ever had. And Aizawa feels bad now and says that no matter what, we're going to get her back. So, currently, in the LOV base, Shigaraki is trying to heal from the punch that Izumi delivered to him, because he tried to hit Aizawa, and Izumi didn't want that to happen. So he got a massive gut punch from Izumi, and he's hurt massively. And All For One walks into the room and sees the little girl and says, "You must be Izumi Midoriya." And she goes, "Fuck off." And he goes, "Ooh, that's not the uh, language a lady should have." And she goes, "I don't give a shit. You're a villain. I don't care what I say to you. I'm gonna stop you one way or another." And he goes, "Ooh, cocky are we?" And he puts his hand on her head and goes, "What the hell are you?" Pulls his hand off and goes, "I can't take your quirk." And she goes, "Mainly because my quirk doesn't run throughout my entire body." And All For One goes, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, my quirk only runs through my skin, muscles, blood. That's it." And All For One goes, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Oh yeah, it doesn't run through my bone marrow. So if I lose enough blood, I lose my quirk. Or I would lose my quirk if it wasn't built into my brain. But you can't take it unless it's throughout the entire body, like All Might's, Aizawa's." And she starts listing all these heroes that have really strong quirks that focus on one part of the body but are still throughout their entire body. Like Aizawa's quirk. Even though he has the eyesight to know if it quirks, he still has to channel it throughout his entire body. And so All For One goes, "Well, I'm just going to kill you then." And he starts hitting Izumi, and all of a sudden Izumi breaks the bond that she was tied up in and punches All For One back. And All For One, who has the scar still, has his head blown off. So he slowly regenerates his head, and he asks, "What the hell was that?" And she goes, "The more damage I take, the stronger I get. Sorry." And he goes, "Well, that's no fair." And she goes, "It's completely fair." "You want to know why?" And he goes, "No, I'm just going to keep hitting you until you die." And so 10 minutes later, after they're fighting, all of a sudden the entire building goes boom from an air pressure blast from Izumi. And Izumi is on low health. So her health bar is currently maxed out at 100 for her level. And she's at 10 health. So she is hurting. And one of the skills that the system gives is the gamer body, that if anybody's watched or read The Gamer on Webtoon, you'll know what the gamer body does. And I'm not giving her the gamer mind. That's too overpowered. So she has the gamer body, so any damage that she would take from blades is actually transferred to health. So she's currently fighting with All For One, and this building goes boom, and all these news choppers see this building go boom and start flying over asking what's going on. They see a little girl with armor on fighting the number one villain, All For One. And they start broadcasting this, and Aizawa sees this because he's watching the news, and he starts heading that direction immediately. And when he gets there, he sees Izumi over the body of All For One and panting, and then collapses. And All For One slowly gets up again, and since Aizawa can cancel out all quirks with his vision in this one, he cancels All For One's quirk, and then he slowly bleeds out, and All For One dies. And the news reporters see Aizawa show up, and they ask, "What did Aizawa do?" And Aizawa says, "I killed the number one villain. My student was abducted," and he points to Izumi, "and we finally found her, thanks to you guys." And he thanks the reporters, and they say, "You're welcome." And he goes, "That was the number one villain she was fighting, and she was abducted by him. And all these damage," and he shows them the body. But he says, "Turn off the camera to see this," and they did. All this damage from her, and she is her hero name is Shadowfire, and she is very strong for what she does. And they're like, yeah, we see that. So Shigaraki left before the fight really got started, and so Shigaraki saw the news and saw that All For One is now dead. And so it's now on to the sports festival. Izumi is in her normal clothes, and she's at her normal speed. And then the obstacle race, she just bulldozes through that. The cavalry battle, she wins that because she has the speed to dodge and counter. And then it's now the 1v1s. She goes up against Shinso, and Shinso knows her abilities. So he tries mind controlling, she responds, and nothing happens. Absolutely nothing happens with Shinso's quirk. And he's confused. And he says, why is my quirk not working? And she goes, what's your quirk? And he goes, mind control. And she goes, that's why. I have an ability to center myself, so I'm immune to all mind control. He goes, that's overpowered. And she goes, yeah, I know. That's what my character is, overpowered. And he goes, what do you mean character? She goes, I am both a game character and a human. If anybody knows, and she's saying this out loud on the microphone, if anybody knows the game character Midnight Fire, I am her creator. And a few of the heroes are like, God dang it! So you're the one who beat us in D&D? And they're yelling this in the crowd, and she starts laughing, going, yeah, I'm her, and I'd love to face you guys again and see if I can make a different character and see how overpowered I can get it. And all the heroes are just paling at this idea of her changing classes and becoming a different character and then beating them again. So they're like, nah, you can keep with the monk fighter. And she goes, okay. And she's currently having a conversation with a few of the heroes in the crowd. And all of a sudden, Midnight says, I'm sorry, but you got to get back to the fight or we're going to have to disqualify you. And she goes, oh, okay. And so she just blitzes towards Shinso and says, you want to fight? And he goes, not really. And she goes, okay, good. So she punches him in the gut, and he gets back up. And she's like, oh, you can take a little bit more damage than I thought you could. He goes, God dang it, that hurt. And she's like, oh, okay. So I'm going to hit you that hard the rest of the time. And he goes, oh, God dang it. And so he starts trying to fight back, and they start seeing this, and they're like, oh. So he really does want to be a hero, and he has the motivation to be a hero, and he'll not give up until he gets what he wins. And then all of a sudden he falls to the ground, knocked out, and Izumi puts a note in his pocket and it says, I'll train you if you're willing to listen and learn. And he wakes up in Recovery Girl's office and asks what happened, and Recovery Girl says Izumi knocked you out in like 10 punches. He goes, what do you mean 10 punches? And she goes, all the rest of them were taps. He goes, what? And she goes, yeah. The 10 punches were the first 10 punches that you actually took, and then once you started hitting her, she started getting faster and holding back a lot. And she said, now that this happened, it's your time to read this note. And he goes, what note? And she goes, look in your left pocket. And Shinso looks in his left pocket and sees the note and is like, oh, okay. And he reads it and he's like, oh, God, this could be hell. And now it's Todoroki versus Izumi, and Todoroki's like, I want to impress her. I want to defeat her. I have to be rough. And he doesn't know that Izumi is finally understanding her feelings and has a crush on Bakugo. But she's too scared to say it, so she just acts normal around Bakugo, so he doesn't notice. So it's now the middle of that fight, and Izumi's starting to get faster and faster and faster. And Todoroki sees this and like, okay, what's going on? Why can't I hit her anymore? Because he hasn't been paying attention to when Izumi's talking about her quirk. And Bakugo's like, if she wins, I have to fight her. And Tokoyami says, you have to fight me first. And he goes, I could beat you easily. Her, on the other hand, I don't know. Tokoyami says, you're doubting yourself against her? And he goes, yeah. You haven't seen what she could do. So he pulls up a video clip of her fighting All For One. And Tokoyami goes, oh my god! So Izumi is now known as the Shadowfire from all the heroes. And it's now the last section of the sports festival. And when Izumi and Bakugo walk up, and the heroes already found a good name for Bakugo, and they start yelling, ground zero, and Shadowfire at the same time. And Izumi walks out and hears ground zero and is like, that's a good name for you, Bakugo. You blow up twice. He goes, what does that mean? And she goes, exactly that. And he goes, oi, stop. She goes, no, I'm good. But I'll make you a promise. If you win, I'll tell you a secret. And he goes, fine. But you gotta hold nothing back. And she goes, I'm not going to. So I know what you can do if I hold back. And he goes, good. You're not gonna hold back. Right off the gate, Izumi dashes towards Bakugo. Bakugo follows up with a left hook with an explosion, but he always does that in this AU. And Izumi saw this coming, but what she didn't see coming was his feint with the left hook explosion. I'm going to do a play-by-play for this one, so it's going to be a long fight scene. What she didn't see was the feint left hook, so he kicked her in the chin, and she went flying back because of her speed. And Bakugo went screeching back and almost broke his leg from the speed that she was at, because she hasn't healed fully. So Bakugo gets back up from falling down a little, and she gets up from falling down. It's like, damn, you've gotten a lot stronger than last time. He goes, yeah, remember Bodega Beach? She goes, yeah, the trash heap? And he goes, it's not a trash heap anymore. She goes, oh, you cleaned it in the last few months we were here? And he goes, yeah. And they're yelling this at each other because they're across the stadium, and they run at each other again. And while they're fighting in the middle, he says, I want to take you there one day. And she goes, oh, sounds good. And he gets shocked by that and goes, wait, what? And freezes, and she hits him in the chin going, stop stuttering, you're fighting, Jesus. And he says, that's a cheap blow. And she goes, all is fair in love and war. He goes, God damn it. I really hate it when you make references. She goes, I know you love when I make references. He goes, yeah. He says under his breath, yeah. So it's now time for the end of this fight. So another 5 minutes goes by of them just running at each other and sparring. And Izumi's like, this is starting to get boring. So she starts using one arm, putting another arm behind her back and using full strength with one arm. And he sees this and he ramps his fighting up. And so she starts not being able to block. And when she gets down to 1 health, she passes out from low HP, but she can't die unless someone does the finishing blow while she's low health. And she's at like roughly 5 health, and Bakugo keeps hitting her with all his strength, and so she has to bring out her other arm, and she's going full power. And he sees this and is like, okay, I need to ramp this up even further. So he goes beyond plus ultra. So he's going 10 times as normal, and he's wearing himself out really quickly. Oh God. Hold on, I need to show you guys something. Yeah, that's my cat. That's my fluffy cat. That's my other cat. He's fluffy too, not as fluffy. Okay, back on topic. So Izumi is like, this is getting boring. Again, and she's now at 2 health, and she's barely holding on to consciousness from the fight, and then she finally lands a hit on Bakugo because she's not aiming for him yet, and she finally lands a hit because she was aiming for him, and he goes flying out of the ring and loses. But instead of actually losing, he catches himself with an explosion, so he doesn't touch the ground where he loses. So he flies back into the ring and starts punching her again. And she's like, God dang it, I'm just trying to end this. He goes, it's not over until I knock you out. And she goes, you're not going to knock me out. And then he lands the biggest explosion he's ever done on her face, and she gets knocked out. And everybody sees this and is like, what? And Bakugo promptly passes out from overexertion for too long. And All Might has been training Bakugo to withstand All for One, because Bakugo has a better mentality in this one. So he's been trained to withstand All for One. Oh, hi, Leo! Leo is the second cat you saw. Hi! I'm sorry, I can't give you love right this second. I'm doing a what if. You want to give an idea? No, they can't be humping. My cat's weird. You could stay there. So they wake up in Recovery Girl's office, and Izumi asks what happened, and Recovery Girl says, you got knocked out. And Izumi looks at her health and sees that she's at full health. And she asks Recovery Girl, did she heal him? Or did she heal her? And Recovery Girl says, I did, and it took forever. And Izumi goes, yeah, I have high health. And she looks at Bakugo, and he's still asleep, and she walks over and kisses his forehead and says, thank you, and puts a note in his pocket. And Recovery Girl goes, so he's the lucky guy? And she goes, no comment. What do you want, Leo? My cat's following me. But she says no comment and runs off a little embarrassed, and she goes back to her dorm because it's the next day. And she walks into the dorm room, and everybody's like, are you okay? You were asleep for a really long time. And she goes, yeah, I'm fine. And Aizawa says, okay, problem child number 1. What did you learn in the sports festival? And she goes, get healed after every fight. And Aizawa goes, yes, and? Bakugo can hurt when I'm not healed. And Aizawa goes, yes, and? And Izumi goes, don't take fights not seriously? And then he goes, yes, and? He's looking for a specific thing, and she goes, I'm the strongest in class? He goes, yes, and? And she goes, I don't know what you're looking for. And he goes, think about it. And so later that day, Bakugo wakes up and asks what happened and where's Izumi, because he was worried about her. And Recovery Girl starts to giggle and have a perverted smile on her face because she knows what her Izumi's feelings are. And stop attacking me! God dang it, Leo! So Recovery Girl's like, check your pocket and I'll be back in a few minutes. So Bakugo checks his pocket and sees the note. Bodega Beach, 6:30 tonight. And it's currently 5 o'clock in the afternoon with Bakugo. So he runs to his dorm room, runs in, and gets his best suit on. And Izumi, who looks like this, while she's in the dorm rooms, she now looks like... Hold on, I have to find it. I'll be right back. She looks like this. And when Bakugo sees this, she gets a trickle of blood down his nose. Because his perverted mind. So they have their date at Bodega, and, well, they're there. They get into bathing suits, start swimming in the ocean. And all of a sudden, Bakugo walks up to Izumi, and they have a passionate night the rest of the night. So it's the next morning, and Izumi's in Bakugo's room, stripped. And it's now time for them to have some more fun. Oh, I gotta do something real quick. So Bakugo doesn't have howitzer impact. He has AP shot. And it's now time for super moves that day. And Bakugo and Izumi walk into the area, and they see Cement Toss, Ectoplasm, but they don't see Midnight. And Izumi is like, I need help from Midnight to test my resistance to gases. And they go, you can do that after this session of super move training. And she goes, I already have a super move. And they go, what is it? And she goes, full power. And Bakugo looks at her and goes, so you weren't using full power at the sports festival? And she goes, I was. But my full power move sacrifices half my health to increase my defenses by double its maximum stat. And my strength by double its maximum stat. And my speed by its double maximum stat. And Bakugo goes, so you're a monster then? And she goes, yeah, but it only lasts 5 minutes. And Cement Toss pulls up barriers in a cube saying, I'm going to shut this cube and your job is to get out of it with your full power move. And she goes, okay, easy, bet. And so Cement Toss puts a cube around her, and it's a 50-foot thick cement cube, and she goes full power, and they hear the cracks forming in the cement before she even starts punching. And when she starts punching, a side gets blown out, and she goes, oh, this freaking hurts, but oh my god, it's so powerful. And Bakugo saw her blow out the side of the cement and was like, oh, damn. Well, good thing I didn't fight that. And she goes, I wouldn't have been able to, because I was at 30 health by the time I was fighting you. And he goes, so that's why you started so strong. And she goes, yeah. But you still beat me. And then she looks down a little sad, and he goes up and hugs her. And it says, it's okay. Not everybody is the strongest. And by this time, he's gotten One for All. And so he has shoot style. And since his quirk evolves from One for All, and yes, I'm giving the One for All the ability to evolve quirks, his quirk allows him to shoot explosions off of his feet now. So he uses karate and a mixture of taekwondo to include his feet, and he says, you want to fight now because my quirk evolved in the last few days and I'm willing to try it on you. And she goes, okay. And so they get in a fighting stance, and everybody's like, oh god, what's going to happen? And she goes, wait, I have 4 minutes and 32 seconds left to wait. So she sits down, settles herself, centers herself, and she starts healing slowly. 4 minutes and 32 seconds later, she's fully healed and ready for a fight. And her full power is gone. And so Bakugo, right off the bat, uses explosions off of his feet to blast forwards. Yeah, blast forwards and... Oh, I'm tired. It's now time for... Ooh! Third episode's out! Woo! You guys gonna need to watch the... You guys gonna need to go find the Crunchy Fett. I'll put a link to his channel in the description of this, but you guys need to watch the Harem Queen. What if? It's really freaking good. But... so it's now the end of the day, and Izumi walks up to Midnight and says, I need your help. And she goes, what do you need my help with? And she goes, I want you to gas me, and I want to see if I can resist your gas. And Midnight goes, my gas is not really meant for females. It's meant for males. She goes, yeah, but it still affects us slightly, and it gets us drowsy. She goes, true. So she rips her costume and releases her gas, and the gas completely envelops Izumi, and Izumi centers herself slightly, not completely, because she needs to completely center herself by sitting still. And so she doesn't feel drowsy, and she's like, thank you, and walks off. And then when she stops centering herself, she feels a little drowsy. So she mistakenly walks into Bakugo's room and flops into his bed and passes out. And Bakugo, not noticing, just curls up in his bed and hugs something and then passes out. He wakes up later and sees Izumi and is like, when did she get here? And it's now time for the... I hear you, Jack. Shut up. Well, I need to write the script a little bit better in my head. So, I'm going to end this section off here. The romance is heating up. Literally and figuratively. It's heating up. So, hope you guys enjoyed. I'll talk to you guys later.